Here are 5 mastering tips you can use to finish your next production. For transparency's sake, I am mostly self-taught, so don't take anything I say as gospel. All I hope to do is give you some ideas for what you can try when you're mastering your next track. This is what I did for the song I just released this Friday. I'm going to play a section with all the mastering done.
I can't see myself on top of the hill, and there is nothing wrong with it for now.
As you can hear, there's quite a lot of things going on. I have many instruments like keys and guitars filling out the mid-range, and a common thing with a lot of instruments in the mid-range is you're going to run into build-up of what we call mud. This is usually a build-up around the lower mid-range, so around where I did this scoop. But what I did that's an interesting technique is I didn't cut out all of these lower mids, I just cut out the side, so I reduced the width of that section. Check out what it does to my mix.
And there is nothing wrong with it for now. Heading out the top of the morning, leaving all the good things behind. It is all I don't have a ceiling to keep me down. Heading out further and further, got no house to keep me around. And the things that happen around me time again and time, but I can't see myself on top of the hill, and there is nothing wrong with it for now. I can't see myself on top of the hill.
So what it sounds like to me is these frequencies are kind of poking into my experience from both sides, and as soon as I enable the band, it clears up a lot of space for me to enjoy the vocals and the bass. So it makes it sound a lot more light, a lot more open. We don't have this in-your-face lower mid-range. It doesn't really do a lot. And because keys and synths, the thing that builds up there usually is kind of wide and stereo by default, if we lower the side image there, we mainly reduce things like keys and synths. But we keep intact the fundamental of the vocals, for example. That sounded really smart. I'm going to skip some of these plugins because they don't do anything that interesting, but feel free to peek at them if you want. The next tip I want to talk about is MWaveShaper is a free alternative for things like Oxford Inflator, a WaveShaper. And if you pay to upgrade to this unlocked free version, which isn't that much, you get access to the online exchange, and many people try to clone Infiltrator in here with some presets, but if you have the actual free version, you can just copy my settings if you want. All I did is I pushed up this curve a tiny bit, but make sure you have similar settings up here as well. What this does is it increases the perceived loudness. Let's hear it without, and then I'm going to enable it.
But I can't see myself on top of the hill, and there is nothing wrong with it for now. I can't see myself on top of the hill, and there is nothing wrong with it for now.
So this just pushes the sound a tiny bit more in your face. Yes, it brings the sound a bit closer. That's something you can try. On to the third technique. I used BX Masterdesk True Peak. That's just the version I have, but you can also use the free BX Masterdesk Classic. It does pretty much the same thing that we needed, that I'm going to do in this situation. What I did is I turned up stereo enhance a bit, but I automated it depending on what section of the song we are in. So this automation lane we see right here is corresponding to this stereo enhance knob. For selected section, I made it wider, and others I made it a bit narrower. So my philosophy is if there's a lot of things going on, more instruments adding in, it's going to get louder. If we push it a bit wider, we can pick out a bit more detail of the mix. So if I add more details, I might want to increase the width a bit so that you can actually pick out those details. Let's, for example, listen to this transition where it goes from 7% enhance to 15% enhance with a little bump.
And there is nothing wrong with it for now.
This is not really a fair bypass because it doesn't only stereo enhance, it also adds a bit of volume and compression and a tiny bit of de-essing. But the technique is still good. You can see I reduced a bit for verse 2, bring it back for the chorus. When the chorus repeats, it brings in even more elements, and so I made it even wider.
There's nothing wrong with it for now. I can't see myself
And then there is this kind of creative, pretty huge bump into the last section.
Things keep on happening. I don't understand.
All right, next technique I want to share. That's a bit of a cheap one in the sense that it's not that interesting, but it's not that cheap because it's quite plugin specific, unfortunately. Of course, you can do something similar, but what I found is this bass section of Fast Limiter really did something to my bass, even though I dialed it back quite a lot because maybe it wasn't the right thing for this song, but it sounded very nice and very useful. If we listen to this section of the song,
At the top of the morning, leaving all the good things behind. It is all, I don't have a ceiling to keep.
it really helped the bass stand out in that section. So if we bring up this cutoff and increase the processing by a lot,
At the top of the morning, leaving all the good things behind. It is all, I don't have a ceiling to keep me down. Heading out further and further, got no house to keep me around. And the things that happen around me, time again and time again.
I feel like it makes the bass a bit more, you can feel it a bit better. What I think it's doing is probably some band-specific compression and saturation. At least that's what it seems like to me. But as I said, it's a bit of a cheap one. Let's move on to the next technique. And that's already the final technique. And this one is pretty standard, but also pretty useful. Serial limiting. You might have noticed I'm using Ozone, and indeed I am using the maximizer module. Then later on I'm using BX Master Desk, also doing some compression limiting. And in the end I'm using Fast Limiter. So 3 limiters in total. Why am I using so many limiters? The first one honestly isn't doing a lot, but it's catching some peaks. Not only with the limiter, but also with this soft clipper right here. And if you catch rogue peaks with one limiter, the second limiter can be a lot more consistent in reducing the leftover transients, fitting the whole mix together. What is this one doing?
At the top of the morning, leaving all the good things behind. It is all, I don't have a ceiling to keep me down. Heading out further and further, got no house to keep me around.
Not a whole lot, but you saw there's tiny reductions in volume. The next one is Master Desk.
At the top of the morning, leaving all the good things behind. It is all, I don't have a ceiling to keep me down. Heading out further and further, got no house to keep me.
This one is adding quite a lot of volume, and it can do that a bit more effortlessly thanks to our earlier limiter. And now on to the last one. This one is mainly to clean up everything, make sure there's no peaks, and bring up the LUFS a tiny bit more.
Myself on top of the hill, and there is nothing wrong with it for now. I can't see myself on top of the hill, and there is nothing wrong with it for now.
These are my suggestions for what you can try on your next mastering project. I would of course really appreciate if you went and checked out this new song. It's on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, anywhere, you name it. Top of the Hill by Ed Baron Lane. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe if you want to support the channel, and if you want to support me financially, you can always do this by sending me some money through Bandcamp by just purchasing a song. Hope you enjoyed the video.
I've seen so many